I want to talk about something most people never talk about honestly, not because it's complicated, but because it makes people uncomfortable, because somewhere along the way, we decided that intelligence was the measure of a person's worth, and anyone who fell below a certain line, well, the world didn't quite know what to do with them, but psychology does. And what it shows is not what most people expect. Let's start with what we're actually talking about. An IQ below 70 is clinically defined as intellectual disability. This affects approximately 1 to 3% of the global population. Below 50 is considered moderate to severe. Below 20, profound. But here's what those numbers don't tell you. They don't tell you about the person sitting behind them. The one who wakes up every morning in a world built entirely for minds that work differently than theirs. A world that moves too fast, assumes too much, and explains too little. Because that is the real experience of an extremely low IQ. Not the number, but the gap. The constant, exhausting gap between what the world expects and what the brain can process. Here's something I want you to sit with for a moment. Every system around us, education, healthcare, employment, legal, financial, was designed by people with average or above average intelligence, for people with average or above average intelligence. Road signs assume a certain reading speed. Medical consent forms assume a certain comprehension level. Job interviews assume a certain ability to present, to strategize, to self-advocate. For someone with an extremely low IQ, navigating these systems is not challenging. It is like being asked to read a map in a language you have never seen, while everyone around you acts as if the directions are obvious. Research published in the American Journal on Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities found that individuals with intellectual disabilities report significantly higher rates of daily frustration, social exclusion, and learned helplessness than the general population. Learned helplessness. That phrase is important. When you fail enough times at things that seem simple to everyone else, when you are corrected, redirected, talked over, and talked down too often enough, your brain stops trying. Not because it is lazy, but because it has learned through painful repetition that trying leads to failure, and failure leads to shame. That is not a cognitive limitation. That is a psychological wound. Here is what the research shows, and what almost nobody in mainstream conversation ever discusses. People with extremely low IQs feel everything. They feel joy, deep, uncomplicated, genuine joy, often more purely than people whose minds are cluttered with analysis and self-consciousness. They feel loyalty. Studies have consistently shown that individuals with intellectual disabilities demonstrate exceptional emotional attachment and interpersonal loyalty to the people they trust. They feel confusion, not the productive confusion of a complex problem being solved, the quiet, chronic confusion of a world that keeps changing its rules without telling them why. And they feel shame. This is perhaps the heaviest finding in the psychology of intellectual disability, shame that arrives not from within, but from without, from a lifetime of being the slowest in the room, from watching others understand things in seconds that take them hours, from seeing the look on people's faces when they give the wrong answer again. That shame is not a symptom of low IQ. It is a symptom of how we treat people with low IQ. Psychologist Albert Bandura spent decades studying what he called self-efficacy, the belief in one's own ability to succeed. He found that self-efficacy is built through experience, through small wins, through being given the right challenge at the right level and succeeding at it. For most individuals with extremely low IQ, that experience is rare. Instead, they are placed constantly, repeatedly, in environments calibrated for minds that work faster than theirs. Classrooms where they fall behind on day one and never catch up. Workplaces where the standard is set by neurotypical productivity. Social situations where the humor, the references, the speed of exchange leaves them perpetually one beat behind. And the result is not just failure, it is a collapsed sense of self. A person who has been told, not always with words, but always clearly, that they are less. That they are a problem to be managed rather than a person to be understood. The cruelty is not always intentional, but it is consistent. And consistency in psychology is what shapes a person. Here's where the science becomes genuinely hopeful. Because the research on intellectual disability is not a story of limitation. It is a story of environment. Studies from the University of Kansas and the American Association on Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities have shown consistently that when individuals with low IQ are placed in supportive, structured, patient environments, environments that meet them where they are rather than where the system expects them to be, their outcomes change dramatically. Not their IQ. IQ is largely stable, but their quality of life, their sense of agency, their ability to form relationships, hold meaningful routines, experience genuine satisfaction. What helps is not trying to make them faster. It is building a world that is slower for them, more patient, more visual, more repetitive in the right ways, more willing to celebrate small progress as the significant achievement it actually is. What doesn't help, and what the research is unambiguous about, is pity. Pity infantilizes. It removes agency. It says, "You cannot, so I will do it for you." And in doing so, it confirms the very helplessness it claims to be relieving. What helps instead is dignity. The radical, simple act of treating a person with an extremely low IQ as exactly that. A person with preferences, with humor, with the capacity for love and connection and meaning, even if the path to those things looks completely different from your own. I want to end with something that I think needs to be said directly. Intelligence is not virtue. It is not character. It is not worth. The person with an IQ of 40 who shows up for the people they love every single day, who remembers your birthday, who notices when you are sad, who laughs at the same joke for the 100th time with the same genuine delight. That person is not less than anyone. They are navigating a world that was not built for them, with tools that were not designed for them, and they are doing it every single day. That is not a deficit. That is resilience. And the psychology of extremely low IQ is not, at its core, a story about what the brain cannot do. It is a story about what the world has refused to become. If any part of this stayed with you, think about the people in your life who move a little slower, who ask you to repeat things, who never quite fit the pace the world set for everyone else. They are not broken. They are not less. They are carrying something invisible every single day in a world that was never designed to carry it with them. And maybe the most intelligent thing any of us can do is make a little more room, a little more patience, a little more space for minds that work differently than ours, because humanity was never meant to move at one speed.